Don't look now, Kyle Brickman, but the Toronto Raptors are coming at you hard and fast, baby. Let's go. Woo!
Yeah, we got a series. We definitely have a series.
Oh
Look, I
my
know only
goodness.
only a couple people have come back from 3-1. No one's come back from 3-0. I know a whole lot of people coming back from 3-2. I've seen
Dude,
3-2 before many a time.
this series has just started all over. We just need two games. We have this is just it fits exactly how I foresaw part of the series going, which is that like if we could get that grain of doubt just like dribbled into Joel Embiid's eardrum and fall down into his brain, and it would just start wearing away, you know, just digging into his brain, and all of a sudden, same with James Harden, and all of a sudden you can see it. He's suddenly tired. He's not focused. He's dejected, and Harden's not going to step up. And then after that, you can't expect this much from Tyrese Maxey. Like he's surpassed expectations. He's a second year player. You can't expect him to be the guy that's going to pull. He doesn't even, like I don't even think he wants to be the guy necessarily or feels comfortable being the guy to pull this team to victory. So if those two dudes can't get their act together, they're in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, in general, if I'm a Sixers fan, and this is part of the reason why I picked the Raptors in 7, is that like that Philly home court advantage is not as strong as some people think. Like those fans are relentless. Those people are can sway the game in favor of the Sixers, but on nights like tonight where like the majority of the night after the Raptors went up 10, which they were up 10 for at least like half the game type thing, the crowd was either dead silent or booing the Sixers. I think the crowd was actually more beneficial to the Raptors tonight than it was the Sixers. So, I don't know. This home court advantage thing is interesting. In general, Embiid looks hurt. He looks like he doesn't want to take post touches as much, and he also looks incredibly frustrated, both mentally and with his physical condition. So I mean, oof, if I'm a Sixers fan, man, I got it. Like I'm feeling a little tight right now.
So I just want to quickly address the Philly fan thing. I think it's utterly garbage that somehow they get this like it's the Philly fans, like they're excused for being toxic. It's like no. If everybody decided that it wasn't this laughable matter, that Philly fans are fickle, that they're willing to sell out anybody on any team at any moment. Like if we all took a stand and decided this is just, I mean, that's what popular culture is. If we all decide one thing on one issue, we can sway it. So enough of this, like, haha, Phillies, they're tough guys. They love the guys they love. They hate the guys they hate. Like now, if you're a fan, you're with them through thick and thin. And Alvin and Devlin said it on the broadcast. They're like, Raptor fans would never do this. And Raptor fans would cry with Scotty at the end of the series if we got eliminated. Like, well, except for the guys that come on this chat and want to trade Pascal. But besides them, we're faithful fans. And I just think it's BS that they get excused for this. Like, I want to see Stephen A. Smith rip into them. And as an aside, if you want to see someone really rip into Philly fans, go watch Bill Burr on YouTube. I think we talked about this already, but that really just that is
Second Bill Burr
catharsis.
Philly reference of
That
the
is
series.
catharsis
One
right
more
there.
coming for sure after the Raptors win Game 7 in similar fashion. Okay, so should we get into the actual game?
Yeah.
I guess the biggest storyline tonight was the Raptors came in with as 8-point underdogs. They had no Fred VanVleet, who was their only All-Star, the guy who carried them for stretches this year, and ended up winning. With Doc Rivers pulling his starters with 2 minutes left of the game. Half the arena was empty, 2 minutes left. It wasn't particularly close the entire second half, with the exception of a couple moments as the Raptors let the Sixers hang around. So what happened? Well, I mean, first of all, the thing that jumps off the page is the Sixers scored 88 points, which is ridiculous. So I guess we should start there. The defense. What did you see tonight defensively that either impressed you or was different from maybe not necessarily game 4, but the games the Raptors lost?
I have said it all along. If this team's defense and if this team's individual skill sets hit their peak of powers all at once, they are an elite Eastern Conference team. Now they haven't really done that with any rate of consistency because of injury, because of illness, because of youth, whatever. You saw it tonight, time after time, possession after possession. Our rotations were spot on. We were challenging. I mean, it helps when guys are missing shots, and like you're getting Tybal, who missed a couple, and then he looks scared. He just straight up looks scared to be there. And then you have Danny Green missing a couple, and he's, if he hits one or two or more of those, like who knows. But ultimately, we're running them off the line. They're running into our second line of defense, which is long and imposing. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, like removing Fred VanVleet from this team has enabled us to field 7 or 8 long dudes that can rotate 1 through 5. There was one possession where Philly ran, I think, 2 or 3 screens, and the third one or the second one, Thaddeus Young ended up on Harden, and it's like, okay, like I'm not worried about that. And I think as soon as they had Thaddeus, they figured out Thaddeus Young was better at the 5 than Birch. Like, game over, man. We have, people were saying this about Boston, but they have 1 through 5 who can rotate onto anybody, and we have the same thing. And once we coordinated our defense and everybody was in line, like it's an impenetrable net.
Yeah, like I first of all agree with everything you said. There were a couple times where Philly was basically setting up like a double drag screen, the top and are just giving up. They're barely running off of the screens. The ball handler's barely trying to like explode off the screens because it's like there's not even the point in getting like trying to hunt switches anymore. Especially that closing lineup of Barnes, OG, Siakam, Gary, and Precious. To me, that's got to be the closing lineup for the rest of the series, regardless if Fred is healthy or not. I think those are the 5 players that make the most sense. The other thing is that this lineup, this team in general, has been thriving on forcing turnovers all year. Tonight they forced 15. And not only did they force 15 turnovers and run off those turnovers, they're running off makes. They were just running. They were just getting in transition early. They're tiring out Joel Embiid, and I think it paid off both because the Raptors were scoring off of those breaks, but also because Embiid looked frankly exhausted, and he had a bad night. I mean, like by his okay, well, whatever, 20, 11 rebounds and 4 assists is like still a tremendous night, but by Embiid standards, a bad night. And a lot of that is the Raptors were running, and the other part of it is that they were long as hell and they were basically suffocating Embiid. The other thing I want to mention, I think you tweeted it, dude. Harden and Thibault are not shooting. It's actually kind of like ridiculous. Harden will not shoot off of driving kicks. Thibault won't shoot, period. They're trying to run sets with Embiid at the elbow, and Thibault is the player making the entry pass, and Thibault won't. They're like the Thibault's defender is fully turning his back and facing Joel Embiid, completely giving up on Thibault, and Thibault refuses to shoot. So much so that it was funny to me. He checked in the game with those 5 other substitutes with 2 minutes left when Doc threw in the towel. Like he was, he's in theory one of their 5 best players, and Doc basically had him out there in garbage time, like, hey, dude, get your minutes now because you're not going to play next game. And frankly, like anyone else on the bench, we might actually need. So Thibault's had he's frankly collapsed big time in this series. More so than I ever expected. I actually don't even think they'll miss him in Toronto to reach that point.
I mean, I talked about
let him come to Toronto. I'm fine. Bring Thibault up to Toronto. Who cares?
Yeah, get him back. Throw him in there.
Get him back. Change the rules. I don't care.
Philly might have to pull out Isaiah Joe because they need somebody to just hit open shots. But yeah, I mean, I said in the Raptors review, that roundtable, that I think one of the regrets I have for this team is not trying out different starting lineups and starting guys like Gary or even Fred off the bench. And I know it's like kind of blasphemy to say Freddie off the bench, but like there was a moment in the second quarter where like we were starting to fall apart. I think it was when what happened? I know all I remember is that Boucher took the charge to kind of like save the
Yeah,
moment.
Nurse took a really good timeout in the middle of the second when the Sixers cut the lead to like 4 or 6, and the Raptors came right back out and had 2 straight possessions, made it double digits again.
Was
That
that when
was
Precious
following
knocked the ball in
yeah.
the yeah,
Okay, Precious, tremendous game. One of the most selfish rebound, like stat chasing moves I think I've ever seen. Like
twice. He did
grabbing
it
that
twice.
rebound out of Scotty's hands and basically scoring on his own basket.
Yeah,
I feel almost bad that this is the first thing we mentioned of Precious because he had a tremendous night. But man, was
incredible. We'll
that
get to
was
that.
like I was yelling.
But my
Uh,
my point was that just like with the Freddie thing, it's just like, those are the moments where I really felt like we missed Freddie. Pascal early on, true too, was having trouble with tie ball at the top of the zone. Like he couldn't wing entry or high post entry. So there was, having Freddie there to kind of stabilize. I've really felt like we missed his presence. And coming off the bench and playing those 12, 15 minutes would have been great. But whatever. But having Scotty Barnes like directing traffic and changing tempo, and man, the ability for him to receive the ball and release the ball within like a microfraction
yeah,
of a second is so
he's
much different than how Freddie operates as a lead guard.
yeah the thing with Scotty is that he's like selfish or he's sorry selfless to a fault at times, which is very frustrating. But I never have a doubt in my mind that he's going to make the extra pass. I think he oftentimes makes one too many passes, and that's arguably his biggest flaw in the offensive end. But tonight, like you can just the ball is just moving differently when you
Yeah.
have Scotty as the lead guard. It just is like, and the on off numbers will support that. The Raptors had 24 assists tonight. Like they were not necessarily, again, not a tremendous shooting night, but the offense just worked. They shot 25% from three. They shot whatever 20% from three the other night. They're winning games. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about. And listen, this isn't like a healthy Fred is undoubtedly a tremendous player. At the moment, he's injured. So it's what can we even say?
Well, and at the same time, and we talk about this throughout the year, like room for usage, like there's too many guys on the court that are trying to get theirs at different points and different times, and that's kind of spread out. First, we saw OG. The first 4 possessions, he had 2 assists and 2 buckets and a steal. Like OG was creating for everybody and himself. And then, you have Pascal doing his thing kind of throughout. Gary cooks a little bit. Precious starts cooking. Scotty gets his thing going. Like there's just a lot more balance on the offensive end for guys who are more willing to play make. Like Freddie's a scorer through and through. He's gotten a little bit better at passing. I don't want to keep harping on Freddie, but it's just an interesting contrast to see how our offense functioned today versus with Freddie on the floor. And different guys stepped up, and it was just it looked there was more flow to it. And as well, for all you Pascal haters out there, Pascal hit some big time tough shots, like long contested 2-pointers, the type of buckets you need to hit in the playoffs because nothing else is going. Defense isn't moving. Everybody else is kind of like, stuck in the moment. And Pascal stepped up and once again hit some big shots.
Yeah, can I just say, like, before we move on from Fred, because I don't want to belabor this, but this is just this team, this Sixers team, is not a good matchup for Fred. In 2019, uh, after the Sixers series, which Fred was like, he's like had one of the worst series of a rotation player I can in recent memory was Fred against the Sixers. And then obviously exploded at the latter half of that Milwaukee series, and then the finals, they won a championship. But like he was really bad against the Sixers, enough so that people were considering like, does this dude even deserve a roster spot next year? Does he deserve this extension he's going to get, et cetera, et cetera? And he that he's evolved as a player, but it's fine to just admit like this isn't a great matchup for him. He's not Fred is a tremendous player, but there are very few dudes in the NBA who are like matchup proof, meaning that there are zero
Yeah.
bad matchups for them. Like, there's like LeBron, you would never say of LeBron, like, this is a bad matchup for LeBron. It's LeBron. Freddie is not that type of player. There are bad matchups for Fred, like some of those being the Sixers, where they basically like are way too big for him, and they have a bunch of dudes who like they have no one who that Fred can necessarily hide on, because even like the Tobias Harrises of the world, the Maxis, etc., can all go get a bucket or shoot the ball. It's just not a good matchup for him.
Yeah, agreed. And I've always said Freddie off ball is the best type of Freddie. And healthy Freddie can handle these matchups. He's just not healthy. Maxi was cooking him time and again. And I think
It
that
was
was
getting
another part
ugly.
of that was another part of this defense is I liked our matchups. I didn't love Scotty on Harden. I think I would have preferred to see him on Danny Green. But Blake was saying on Twitter that like keeping Scotty on Harden enables a switch onto Embiid if there's a Harden Embiid pick and roll. So I get that, but Harden was kind of having his way with Scotty. I loved OG on Maxi. That really caused him problems, and you see this often. We saw it with DeMar DeRozan a lot. Stronger, longer guys give these kinds of combo guards a lot of problems, and if you can't get around them because they're too strong and they're laterally just quick enough and they're long enough to challenge your pull up, they feel very uncomfortable. And you saw that tonight.
Especially when the Sixers are so committed to Embiid. It's really easy to go OG on Maxi, because it's like that any sort of Embiid Maxi action, whether it's a dribble handoff, whether it's a pick and roll, the Raptors can just switch, because OG, although he's a wing or whatever, like a forward, can do a decent job at least holding off Embiid for the tiniest amount of time. So great for him. We should get into maybe Taxman, which is a good segue to maybe talk about the dude who we maybe should have mentioned off top, which is Pascal, who is, I would say, likely his first excellent game of the series. I don't know.
What about yesterday or 2 days ago?
No, you're right. You are right. No, it's his second excellent game of the series. Although I should have said his first Taxman of the series, because we, of course, gave it to Thad Young, being like the weird hipsters that we are.
Pascal was 3 for 5 in the fourth quarter. So all you, everybody who said he wasn't clutch, he pulled through when he needed to. And once again, his defense was like top. He's everywhere they need him to be on all possessions, whether it's Embiid or whether it's Maxi. Pascal finished 10 for 15, I want to say. 10 for 17, 2 for 4 from 3, which is always a welcome sign. Only 2 free throw attempts, which is different from last week. But again, he was hitting, or last game, but he was hitting his mid-ranger today. 10 boards, 7 assists, 2 turnovers, a weird sloppy one. I think both turnovers were maybe in the first quarter, first half. A little sloppy. But otherwise, a great game. And what you need from your lead player, and especially when other guys were thriving. I want to shout out Precious, though. Can we shout out Precious?
I was actually just going there. I thought that Precious, dude, what he's doing to Embiid in space is unbelievable. He's, for whatever reason, the most effective Raptor at attacking Joel Embiid in space, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Like the fact that like he was almost a meme essentially to us, earlier in the year. So I mean, all credit to Precious. One or maybe 2 incredibly boneheaded plays, followed up by 12 ridiculous moments of genius. And by the way, post-game interview, gave a really great interview. Seemed like a really intelligent dude who actually made it. A lot of guys don't make any effort to answer the questions intelligently beyond we were aggressive and we tried hard. Precious actually, you could tell he's a smart guy in his post-game interview. So I think that's worth checking out if you haven't already.
It was a quintessential Precious Achiuwa game, to represent his entire season, right? Like that stupid rebound with Scotty Barnes, the random pull-up 3 in transition, but then also these isolation moves where he's pivoting around Embiid and finishing in traffic and then Dean him up like we're seeing here and taking the charge. He's growing before our very eyes, and you get those frustrating moments, but ultimately he's becoming our 3B best player. I don't know. I think so many times in the season when Precious is a big game, it tips the scales in our favor. Like he really is the X factor in so many ways. And this was just another night, and you saw it for a moment there. I think Nurse picked up on Embiid being tired because Precious went at him multiple times in a row, and
He
then
also was in foul trouble. That's the other element of it. Like
true.
those possessions also coincided with like Embiid being in pretty serious foul trouble and unable to defend.
And then Gary went at him too and had a shitty possession, but like I think they just saw a crack in the armor, and I think that's where I feel really confident coming off this game is like the Embiid and Harden have a lot to prove going into Game 6, and they've always had a lot. Harden was the main guy in the NBA playoffs who had a lot to prove. But now Embiid's moving up that list because he talked a lot of smack for the last 2 games. He indulged the drama. He let his arrogance shine. And now it's kind of backfiring. And you can almost tell he realized that, okay, like I got to get in the trenches now. I gotta battle because, all of this bravado and stuff, like it's starting to, the chickens are coming home to roost. And so my point is I think Nurse picked up on that, and like they wanted to hammer it at him. Like, okay, like you're no longer this big defensive stalwart that you think you are.
Yeah. He can't do as much as is being asked. And on other nights, like, Tobias Harris had a pretty awful night tonight. And he was really the dude, carrying some of those units without Embiid for a while. And Harris has always to me been like, you're like playing pickup and, you're playing like one-on-ones before like the actual game starts. And he like knows all the angles and he knows how to like bump you and get to the rim. And you're like, oh man, this dude's awesome. And you start playing with him on your team and he's like pulling these random 40-footers and he's like losing guys on back cuts. You're like, dude, what the hell happened? You were so good one-on-one. What's the hell's going on? Like he's so skilled. He just can't put it together for whatever reason. And, maybe I'm not sure if the other games were necessarily flukes because some of it is just shooting variance. The other part of it is that I think Pascal was really cooking him tonight offensively, really making him work. And that actually got to him big time. He looked tired. All those Sixers looked tired. And
yeah, they did look tired.
It's a big switch from earlier in the season, or the series, I should say, when the Raptors were the team constantly with their hands on their knees, panting, et cetera, et cetera. They got the Sixers working now, and that's a good recipe for them.
The only reason why Tobias was staying in front of Pascal was because he was hand checking him the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just kept grabbing him, and he played pretty good defense. But if you think about it, like I think we kind of went away from this, and remind me to do the Taxman read in a second. But Philly's a superficial team in personality, but also in roster. I mean, if Harden and Embiid are tired and Maxi's kind of checked out and Toby's hitting shots or not, like there's nobody left. And I think that's another part of, can we say Philly is super Philly-ishal? That's the part of this that I think is also understated is that we have 8 athletes that can definitely go, thank you, that can go 7 games strong and probably not be tired. I think Pascal will get a little tired, but our dudes are athletes and they're ready to roll. And I think Game 6, God willing, Game 7, the Philly's going to start feeling the burn on this, and we will be handing a gift to Miami, because if Philly gets past us and goes to Miami, like they are just going to run them off the floor. I don't think they can handle the endurance of these games.
Yeah, look, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but Game 6 in Toronto, who knows what the line will be, who knows if Fred will be back, but Raptors have been playing well. And then if they win that, Game 7 back in Philadelphia, a lot of anxious. I think Bill Simmons has spoken about this before, but it's like people so overrate the advantage of a home crowd in Game 7s. Like, man, there's a lot of anxiety in those games. It's not always positive. Like a lot of teams, especially mentally tough teams like the Raptors, the guys with teams with a bunch of dogs, like who feed off of that negative energy. The building gets quiet, the Raptors go on a big run. you kind of wishing you didn't have home court advantage in a game 7. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Okay,
Guys,
Taxman.
yeah, I was gonna say we have to do it eventually. I would probably go Pascal because he deserved it last night. He deserves it tonight. I know Precious had a terrific night, but he scored in his own net, and we have to have some boundaries here.
I will happily give it to Pascal Siakam. Once again, he has taken the responsibility upon his shoulders to carry this team and carry the offensive load. And guys are filling in nicely. Congratulations, Pascal Siakam. You are the Can-Am Taxman of the night. CanAmTax.com, our faithful sponsor with VJ Verma, keeping it real for the Raptors Republic. Aiden Moss is still on, hasn't done his taxes countdown, so stay tuned. But yeah, if you need for your small businesses, personal taxes, go check out CanAmTax.com. Faithful fan of Raptors Republic, of the Toronto Raptors. Help out the small businesses out there. Avoid H&R Block like the plague. Congratulations, Pascal Siakam, for the Can-Am Taxman of the night.
Great. Excellent. That was like the read of the year. We should start giving out that award, read of the year, and I'm giving it to you for that one. Let's do a little couple quick questions here. And then eventually we got to go. Maybe not this, who knows what time, but we can get into questions now. Did I see that was such a bad joke.
I like it. I'm so here for it.
Yeah, I'm going to take it off for a second, and I'm going to leave it here. Yeah, this is actually a good opportunity to talk about Paul Reed. Why not? Paul Reed was tonight a -11. He
hit a tough one.
Got cooked. So much so that in the fourth quarter, the beginning of the fourth quarter, when Doc was crucially trying to buy Embiid a little tiny couple seconds, a couple winks of sleep, as it were, some little bit of rest on the bench, couldn't do it. It only lasted 2 minutes. The Raptors went on a nice little run there, and he, Reed seems like a good dude, decent player. It's not going to work against the Raptors. And the Sixers know this. So we'll see. Like had Embiid been able to rest for 3 or 4 or perhaps 5 minutes in that fourth quarter, check back in at the 7 or 8 minute mark, I actually think that the Sixers would have had a good chance to win this game, because they they were just hanging around between that 8-point to 12-point range. They could have got hot and won the game, and they just, Joel was just a little too tired. So Paul Reed, oof, good luck with that.
Our bench had 26 points. I'm just trying to do the math on Phillies. It looks like Paul Reed had 3. Tybal had 2.
Also, Paul Reed took a tech. That's another.
Yeah, true. Niang had 3 and Korkmaz had 3. Who cares? Our bench is decidedly the better bench in this series. And again, with this eight lineup, this 8 lineup long dude thing we got going on, it doesn't really even feel like we let down on the offensive end when even Pascal's sitting. And again, man, to all you haters out there, Gary had the flu for two games. Scotty sprained his ankle. We at full strength are a better team than this Philadelphia team. And that's because when Pascal sits, Scotty and OG can take over. And they did that tonight. If Gary's hitting, if Gary's playing, even defensively, he had a lot of deflections tonight. He was much more disciplined than he's been in the past. I think we are the better equipped team than Philly altogether.
No, I can't remember the dude's name. There's the Philly fan is not in the chat tonight. He's missing, so who knows? Zarar, do you want to come in? We got Zarar here waiting in the wings.
I can't pump the brakes. What am I pumping the brakes on? There's nothing to pump the brakes on. We might lose this series, but we are still decidedly the better team. There's no question. Zarar, am I right or am I right?
I'm still shook from game 3. I really think we should have won that freaking.
This could have been
game.
A completely
and what a different
scenario.
Series this might have been if that would have gone in. But let's let's not worry about that. I don't know if you guys have talked about this already. And have you guys talked about Siakam yet?
Yeah. Not as much
we're on minute 30, but yeah, we could have gotten into it a little bit more.
That third quarter where he was hunting down pretty much everybody in one-on-one matchups and got past the first line of defense, negotiated the second one, and swung out pretty much effectively to everybody on the perimeter. That's the Siakam that wins us games. Right. And I don't know how much this had to do with, because one of the things, I was doing the quick reaction for the site for the first 3 games and was miserable at the end of each one of those games. And one of my complaints was that the Raptors are not really doing the things that they did the entire regular season, which is running the ball through Pascal Siakam playing point forward. As soon as Freddie came in, for whatever reason, Freddie dominated the ball in the postseason way more than he did in the regular season, which didn't make any sense. And the results sort of showed. And I think today Pascal played with a little bit more freedom and took some initiative in taking his guys on and passing it up. And one more point while I'm rambling, our double teaming today. Our double teaming was amazing. Like how effectively we double teamed, where we came from, how quickly we recovered, flawless. And notice that it wasn't the same double team every time. Sometimes it was OG coming from the weak side. Sometimes the double came from the strong side. So different looks thrown at Embiid and Philly. And, kudos to Nick Nurse for really coaching the shit out of this game.
Yeah. Hey, watch the vulgarities, Zarar. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's on the podcast.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. Like our scrambling was in like fine form tonight, and it was just like there was very little space for these guys to operate. And again, when Tybal's afraid to throw the ball towards the direction of the rim, and when Danny's like, I mean, Danny had a pretty good shooting game, but when those threes aren't falling, like our timing on our double teams and the risks we're taking are really paying off. And the only times it's not is when Embiid actually gets his ass like under the rim, and then we're kind of hooped. Yeah. But we fixed that for the most part.
And he only gets under the rim. I know in I don't know if Kyle, if you noticed this, but there was a period in this game where Philly made an effort to get deep post position early in the clock. Mm-hmm. That was scary because if they go to that thing more often, the Raptors don't really have a great answer because Precious, as great as he is, can't really defend in tight quarters that close to the rim. But other than those possessions where Embiid got deep post position, Philly really did not hit. Their 3-pointers were challenged. They missed some open looks in the third quarter, but the Raptors missed way more open looks in the third quarter.
Yeah, we were talking. Aiden, do you want to say your goodbyes?
No, you go ahead.
No, say your goodbyes. Say your goodbyes, please. Are you sticking around?
Yeah, I'm sticking around for a sec.
Okay. Yeah, we were talking earlier. Like, it's not like this is a fluky game. Same with Game 4. Like the Raptors shot 25% from 3. This isn't a total fluke. This is a win that's born out of there's a tremendous defensive effort. And people are pointing out in the comments. I do think that a lot of this is with not having Fred on the floor, frankly, and that's not a knock on Fred. He's injured at the moment. He's not the player he should be. But these lineups that the Raptors are playing, where it's like the full realization of the concept that they've been going for all year, like this crazy 6'9" switchable long concept, those cannot be fully realized without 5 switchable guys. And the Sixers were taking full advantage of having Fred out there. So, Aiden, like, what are your final thoughts in the game before you head out? Would you agree that this team is? Do you think that the closing lineup tonight, like not the lineup that actually closed the game, but ended the game for all intents and purposes, the Siakam, Anunoby, Barnes, Trent, Achua lineup, is that our best 5 for the rest of the series?
No, unquestionably, and sometimes with Thad too. I think
we're winning there.
We're winning this series. I bet it when the Raptors were down 3-0. I believed, like Zarar said, we should have won game 3. Game 4 was like basically a rout. Game 5 was a rout. Like we're coming for them and they know it. And there's no reason to believe that Harden has the gumption to fight back. And I don't really believe in Embiid's ability to fight back either. Philly's going to have to get really hot from 3. or they're going to have to get like a 50-pointer from Embiid to like really capitalize on this game or on this series. Now, I got to roll because I have a basketball game. But first, I wanted to shout out our fans because somebody complained about my audio, which I appreciate because I have like headphones that I'm using from like ones that I've ran in the laundry 1,000 times. So Zarar and I went out of our way to get me a real mic. So shout out to the fans who care about us. We're listening and we're reading your comments. Now I've got real tech. Next thing, everybody complained about the color on my screen, and maybe I'll get a new laptop from Raptors Republic too. So
yeah, don't encourage people to be critical in the comments.
Are you in a Wes Anderson movie right now? That's what it feels like.
I feel like I'm on mushrooms right now.
You're
But
in Budapest Hotel Budo, whatever that movie was. That's what he looks like.
I gotta go hoop. Let's go Raptors. See you guys.
Can we?
We'll do. It was nice to see it. We'll do a couple questions and we'll head out. Because frankly, in my mind, we got another two of these. At least another two of these. How do they? You were talking earlier about like Embiid getting super deep post position early in possessions. How do they keep Embiid out? I think a lot of it is like you just either make your shots or you commit enough people to the offensive glass that Embiid can't get up the floor so quickly and basically seal a guy. But what are your thoughts?
I think you got to use the 3-second rule against him because he only gets in deep post position if he outruns you in transition. So if you stick with him in transition, which Precious is more than capable of doing, and I want to talk a little bit more about Precious, to be honest with you, Matt. He can stay out of the paint, and also I think you also got to notice that when he is deep into the paint, Philly doesn't necessarily have great passers to get him the ball there. They actually struggle. He was in the paint way more than the times he actually received the ball and did something with it. So I think pressuring the guards actually might be sufficient to keep him to prevent him from getting deep post position, because there's only so much Precious can do with his slender figure compared to Embiid. So pressuring the ball in that situation is equally effective than denying Embiid.
Yeah, and even more than pressuring the ball, like you can do, I think what the Raptors are doing a little bit of tonight, which is basically like deny the ball from any other guard, plus Embiid's to force Thibault to make the entry pass, or a different non-shooter to make the entry pass. And there were a couple moments tonight where like Thibault and Embiid were doing like the like the Will Ferrell and semi-pro like post up, okay, take the ball back, post, like the clip I'm talking about. We'll run it later, I guess. They're just like passing the ball in and out of the post because Thibault was like completely unwilling to take a wide open jump shot. So yeah, I'm with you. Ball pressure and force the non-shooters to
I also loved how we always kind of complained about Fred VanVleet getting shut down by taller, more athletic guys when he's playing out of position. I loved seeing that happening to Maxey when Siakam was guarding him. So it feels so good when the shoe's on the other foot and their quick little point guard is just being neutralized by length. And we've seen that in Boston 2 years ago. So we're no strangers to that. It's just good to see it happening on the other side.
Yeah, VJ. Hey, man, thanks for checking in. I don't know, is this like a fake
account? No, that's him. That's our guy. That's our guy. That's our guy. Nice. Thank you for the support, VJ Verma.
How to handle their zone better. We had turnovers and bricks for a long stretch. Yeah, I actually had this in my notes. I think that guys need to be more willing to just take shots against the zone. Like Thad had a couple moments where he would be catch the ball at the 3-point arc and attack a semi closeout and be wide open in the mid range. It's like, you just got to take that shot. The ball would swing to Scotty at the top of the key. You just have to take that shot. OG would be like, sometimes it's like, it gets a little weird because guys don't know where people are closing out from in a zone. Like you don't know whether or not someone's going to basically come swat your shot into like the 10th row, Herb Jones style. But they were just like, they were kind of unwilling to shoot and they seemed a little frazzled by it, which is odd. I always find it's like, if there's a team in the NBA that should be accustomed to playing zone against zone on offense, it should be the Raptors. Because not only are you a non-shooting team and you should, you would have seen this a lot in the regular season, you can see that a lot in practice. Nick Nurse is like the dude who brought this back. Surely you know how to attack this, right?
Yeah. And the zone, what the zone does to the Raptors is it almost immediately. And I don't know if you saw the game on the I don't know which feed you were watching, but I was watching the NBA TV feed for this one, and they had a pretty long session about a 2-minute conversation on the Raptors zone. And I think it was Brendan Haywood, who was the color commentator on the other side. And he made a pretty good point, is that as soon as the Raptors face a zone, they immediately go into ISO mode. Like
Which
their
is
natural
the
reaction to
worst,
zone is to be surprised and then try to take one-on-one. So in that period, things don't go well for them unless they're playing amazing one-on-one, but that doesn't happen all the time. So to answer the question, how do you beat the zone? You definitely had to hit your outside shots. But I'll point to game 3, I think, in Philly, or 2 it was, where the Raptors did a good job of flashing to the middle when they have a zone, like keeping the middle empty, flashing to it, and then doing some quick passes around it. So instead of just like try to beat the zone and one-on-one and kick it out, like leave the middle open, so clear it out, and then have Siakam or one of your better passers flash into the top of the key, hit them, and then they have to make good decisions there. That's the other effective way that I've seen this year the Raptors beat the zone, other than just bombing from 3.
Yeah, absolutely. This is sort of like Buster says, how many hours does Doc sleep tonight? I'm not that in tune with the guy's sleep schedule. I would say very few.
Doc looked stressed.
Yeah, I actually do feel bad for him, because it's like, he's kind of lost the coaching battle, but it's like, he's not forcing whatever Harris to go 6 for 16 from the field. He's not forcing Max to go 5 for 14 from the field. Like, he's not out there shooting every shot. So I kind of feel bad for Doc here, because it's rough.
But I also think he's not really utilizing Embiid as well as he can.
But Embiid looks a little bit hesitant to actually like fight for deep post position. Part of that is that he's exhausted. Part of that is his hand like probably hurts a lot. And I guess a lot of the other part of that is, Doc has always been too deferential to guys who aren't his best player. Like, he always had those like, hockey substitutions where he'd bring in like five bench guys at once instead of just like rolling with one of his 2 best players and letting that guy have the floor to himself. Like he's always been that type of player. So I think, maybe him empowering Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey over Embiid and Harden, rather than Embiid and Harden worked for him in the first 2 games, but it's not working now. It's looking pretty ugly now.
And I'm not sure Doc is doing the right thing by not playing, and I hate to say it, but like Niang more, because when Niang plays, the Raptors do cheat off of him, even though he's hitting his threes. They do sort of leave him a little open, and he seems to be hitting his outside shots. He prefers to give those minutes to Tybal for defensive purposes or Maxey for driving purposes. But I feel Niang spreads the floor a lot for them and has the ability to punish the Raptors for the aggressive double teaming that they do. So it kind of surprising that he's going with a more athletic lineup and not a more shooty lineup, right? So it was very and played into the Raptors' hands, really.
Yeah, and I think part of like going zone is that you're able to hide a guy like Niang, or you can't really hunt a switch. You can't attack a dude like you can in man. And Niang is dude's got a podcaster's body. If we're being honest, that he's an NBA player. I mean, he's just not up to the athletic standard, which must be frustrating. How do the Sixers adjust? I got to find the question here.
Well,
how does Philly adjust?
Phoenix is making a good point. Yeah, Niang you can destroy on the pick and roll. Like he's not an active. But guess what, man? The Raptors don't really run a lot of pick and roll.
No.
So you can point taken, and I agree with that. But the Raptors are not a heavy pick and roll team. They just are not.
But even like a Niang switch, they go at that all day, and it actually isn't that big a problem for the Sixers when Embiid's out there, because he just cleans everything up around the rim. It's like, okay, whatever, you can switch on to Niang and get right by him. You still got one of the best rim protectors in the NBA waiting there. But like, when he's tired, or when it's like Niang's minutes are tied with Paul Reed, which is just like a total disgusting move. But if I was a Phillies fan.
Did you see Paul Reed like not be ready for the Harden pass underneath when Harden was doubled, and he just, I don't know what he was doing. I think that was a moment where the energy sapped out of the building.
Yeah, those Philly fans are not happy right now. And like I was saying, I can't even remember if you were on the podcast. Like that game 7 in Philly, if the Raptors win, it's going to be it's going to be a really tense game. Who knows how much home court advantage matters. If you're Philly, you're Doc right now, You're on the plane ride. I guess maybe you're not going to Toronto right away, but you're on the drive. You're on the limo home after this game. What's like the first adjustment that comes to mind for me? I think you got to go zone. Until the Raptors are basically prove that they can solve it consistently. I would probably go zone minute one, especially when Kem Birch is out there. When the Raptors start starting the game with Kem Birch, I'm going zone minute one. And I'm just like daring the Raptors to beat it because they haven't really proven that they can.
I honestly don't think Doc has too many defensive options to sort of slow down the Raptors. We've seen it's game. We're heading into game 6. At this point, there are no secrets in the series. We know where we can win, and we know where we can get hurt. I think Doc should be more worried about his offense more than what he's doing defensively in the zone, because offensively, the Raptors seem to have found this now that Scotty's back, and also Scotty's making a massive difference in the switchability on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I love that kid, man. He's so good. He's we were saying earlier, there's no one I trust on this team more. That includes like, the 10-year NBA vets type thing. Like there's no one I trust in this team more to make that extra pass, like make one more pass than is necessary to like go from good shot to great shot. It's Scotty more than anyone else in this team. It's Scotty.
And I'll tell you one weapon that we really haven't used as much, like how we saw Siakam go at like their weaker defenders, like in ISO situations in that third quarter. Scotty had a couple of moments too. He went against Harden a couple times, and then he had this like Tim Duncan type turnaround.
Yeah.
Off the glass,
which was like about 10 feet of the air, like off of his hand, like 10 feet above his body, off the top of the glass. That one was crazy. I did not see that going in. I was like almost disgusted at first.
This might be it. Yeah, this is it. Okay. So and after this possession, I think the possession, the 2 possessions after this one, he wanted the ball again on the block. And Siakam just missed him and ended up shooting like, I don't know what he did with it. But Scotty wants the ball and is feeling very confident against pretty much any Philly defender in the block. And if the Raptors want to throw another surprise factor at Doc, which he hasn't seen a lot, that might be it.
Especially early in games when they have Maxey on him in transition, because, Scotty was switched on to Maxey or for whatever reason, like you got to attack Maxey in the post if you have Scotty there. Scotty's a tremendous post player. All the numbers bear out. The eye test bears out. Like he's basically as proven as you can be as a post player, and he needs touches. And if you have a dude who's like, in contention for being the skinniest player in the NBA in Maxey, the slightest of frame, you got to go after him in the post. So
and how does Philly adjust, man? I think. What can they do? They know that we don't have great answers for Embiid. So they probably will try to establish him and just milk the hell out of him, because once desperation times hit, you try to go for the sure thing over and over again. So I expect to see a lot of Embiid, not just in spurts in the first or spurts in the third, but really throughout the game. And what I also noticed, the Raptors got him in foul trouble. Siakam, when he was operating on the perimeter and drove, I think Embiid picked up 2 fouls against that thing. And maybe not fouls directly against Siakam, but fouls off after Siakam makes the initial drive and pass. Embiid is picking up fouls. That's something new. That hasn't happened in this series. He had 5 fouls in this game. So maybe that's something the Raptors can build on if Doc throws some sort of a counterpunch.
Yeah, and they actually, that enabled later in the game Achua to go after Embiid really aggressively, because Embiid basically couldn't make good contests at the rim because he's afraid of picking up his 4th, 5th, and maybe even 6th foul. So yeah, like I said, last win, this is the formula. It's not like the Raptors got crazy hot. It's just they're outplaying the 76ers. So is there anything else we should touch on? Guys, okay. I know I said the Sixers, I know I said the Nets would win in 6 games against Boston. It was wrong. Everything I've predicted has been wrong thus far.
Can we talk Ben Simmons a little bit?
Yeah, I was going to say, quickly, I do want to say that we are sponsored by the Score Bet. The link is in the description. Let them know we sent you over. It's in the description on YouTube. It'll be, I believe, in the description of the podcast feed, wherever. Yeah, and sign up if you haven't seen them yet. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're not watching TV because they're all
What's
over
this OG
TV.
quote?
Sorry. OG said like get the ball to Siakam and get out of the way. So maybe that's something to bet on. The Siakam over points next game. Take a look at that. His teammates are hyping him up. Maybe check that out. Score bet.
Totally agree on this quote, man. And again, I felt so horrible after Game 3 because I was tasked with a stupid quick reaction on the site.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what did Nick Nurse get in Game 3 after not putting a guy in C minus after no one on the inbounder? I figured
no one on the inbounder just bugged the hell out of me. And this is like I don't know who if our audience is old enough to remember this, but do you know where this quote originates from? Like this, give him the ball and get out of the way. Kyle,
is it an MJ thing? Is it an MJ thing?
No, somebody should know. One of our 300 plus viewers must know where this quote originates from. No?
If it's not MJ, is it Larry Bird?
It is MJ, but it is Doug Collins.
Wow.
Who had this quote after Game 5 of Bulls versus Cleveland, I think in 1989 or 88. When Jordan hit that like shot over Craig Elo and like swore at the press row in the post-game press conference, Doug Collins they asked him, what was the plan? And he goes, give the ball to MJ and get the fuck out of the way. I swore again. I got to bleep that out. And then Doug Collins basically got fired for that quote because they discovered, well, that's a strategy against Jordan. That's not going to work. So 100% agree on this quote.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to see how Game 5 goes, but as of right now, especially when if they're going to get into like a heavy ISO offense anyway, it's got to be Siakam or a huge mismatch in the post. I don't want to see anything else if you're doing ISO stuff. I still believe they should try to run pick and roll and try to run actual sets. And Gary, by the way, has been a tremendous passer to the pick and roll in these past couple games, which has been an underrated development of his. But
Gary had two very, very nice exchanges with Precious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Precious, I think, missed two of the shots, but he made one. So Gary and Precious have something going where if they go in a sort of not a pick and roll, but more like pick and Gary drives and punches it back out to Precious, who's on the wing, that might be a play you may want to run to sort of surprise Philly. It works. It's in the back pocket. Philly has a tendency to go towards the ball handler, and they still don't really respect Precious' outside game much. So that shot is available there in a pinch if you need it.
Okay. Maybe they'll go to that. Maybe they'll go to that in a big moment. I'm with you. I think it's almost always open. Because part of the reason is that Gary is not expected to pass that. Part of the reason is that Achua still, despite being a tremendous shooter, doesn't really get closed out on that aggressively. Doesn't actually doesn't get that much respect as a shooter. Look, either way, 3-2 series. No one's ever come back from 3-0. Few people have come back from 3-1. A lot of people have come back from 3-2. So guess what? Here we go.
Who's Taxman?
We already did Taxman. It was Siakam, I believe.
Siakam.
That's why VJ was in there. Yeah, this is the clip I was talking about. This is Embiid and Thibault tonight. Interesting angle, but it was just essentially them passing back and forth. just sort of like, oh, it's not the right shot. Okay, get it back up. That's just sort of what I was envisioning, which is like this is a classic comedy basketball gif. Anyway, guys,
all right, let's get
back in Toronto, 3-2. Should you want to give a prediction, or do you not want to curse anything?
I mean, yeah, I'll give a prediction. Sure, I think the Raps are going to win Game 6, man.
I do too. I do too. And by the way, I was right about Game 5. So although after being wrong about everything else, I was right about Game 5.
Here's a better question. Do you want Fred to be healthy for Game 6?
If Nurse has the type of relationship with Fred where he can say, like, you need to be on the bench, you need to do this, you need to play this way, then yes. Otherwise, these guys are rolling right now. They're rolling, and it looks good. So I don't know. I'd like him to be healthy. It'd be stupid to say I don't want this good player out here, but I do have to qualify that statement with, like, they have to keep playing the way they are. I think he should come off the bench, honestly. So
I think they should do a Fred intro with shades of Willis Reed. Was it Willis Reed, the New York Knicks? Way back, he came in to play the first 5 minutes of the game, gave the whole arena a bump. That was the year the Knicks won the championship, 71, I think it was, or around the 70, 71 maybe. So I think Fred is your Willis Reed for Game 6.
Okay, all right. That's been myself. Adon was around. Chris, thank you for producing. Zarar, thank you for like stopping in for the last portion.
Stopping in.
Yeah, it's been myself, Kyle Brickman. This is the wrap up. Don't forget to like the video again, guys. Costs you nothing. Doesn't cost you anything, and it does actually support us more than you might think.
And we got to pay for Aiden's new mic. It's like
we got to pay for
$140.
Aiden's new mic. We'll be paying that down on the YouTube. We'll be paying that down for the next 10 years. So, thanks again, everyone, and yeah, we'll see you all soon.